Hi everyone, and welcome to day number 4 of our ConfigMas 2023. This is our version of 12 Days of Christmas, starting December 25, ending on January 5. My name is Jon Arvidmark, and in this demo I will show you how you can get a little bit closer look behind the scenes in terms of what traffic that goes through your networks when working with a ConfigMgr in the lab environment. And that means demo time. This is one of my ConfigMgr labs, and like I showed you in the first video this season, we have a network that looks pretty much like this, a remote data center where I have a few distribution points, and I have a branch office where I have a few clients, and they are all connected through a pfSense router emulating a 155 megabit WAN link. Now, if I'm doing, say, peer-to-peer configurations or other type of deployments, I just want to make sure that content is flowing the way I expect it to flow. There are a few ways I can monitor that easily through both pfSense itself, but also through PowerShell. Now, starting with the pfSense one, if I go over here, this is a different lab where I do a lot of delivery optimization testing. And when doing that, it's often useful to measure, for example, how many connections or flows the clients are doing on my network, so I can verify that my peer-to-peer configuration for delivery optimization is good, etc. And pfSense has a nice package that you can install on top of it called NTopNG. There are community editions available for it. There are also commercial editions, but I'm running the community edition here. And allow you to see you in real time how you are doing on your network at the moment, and you also get some history. You can go back in time and see and whatnot. But it turns out that even with just Hyper-V and a healthy dose of PowerShell, you can measure traffic that goes through this router. So back in the days, I put together a blog post on how you can measure that traffic using PowerShell. And I'm going to demonstrate how that looks today. But first, you're probably aware of that in ConfigMgr there are a ton of native reports that you can, borrow. So if I would over to my monitoring node, head over to reporting, reports, and go down to software distribution content, and I can check my DP usage summary or distribution point usage summary. If I run this report, I pick my distribution point, I pick a time frame, last month in this case, and I can see, if I scroll down here, how many clients and how much traffic that has been requested from this particular distribution point. But this data is only summarized once per day, so it's not exactly real time when I do my testing. So instead what I have here is that PowerShell script I mentioned earlier. This one is running and measures 3 different distribution points, the 3 I had, and it's using the native resource metering that you have in Hyper-V, and I'm just enabling it for all of these VMs in this list. So what I'm going to do here is to start that script, and it will now start to do some logging into this log file. We'll head over to my lab machine or my Hyper-V host. And these machines, again, they're currently not running. I will start this script here, generate a list. I have these 10 VMs in that list now. And for each of them, I'm going to start them, and I have a 5-second delay in between the start. So these virtual machines are now being powered on, and due to the magic of video editing, I'm going to give them a few minutes here to start up and actually launch the deployment so we can get some data. But even before we have downloaded pretty much anything, we will see eventually a few things happening here in the log file, because even as the boot image downloads, it will generate some data through that router. It's not going to be much, but it's going to be a little bit. And there we see the first traffic coming in. Apparently one of the clients downloaded about 10 megabytes or so from one of the distribution points. I will go back to my Hyper-V host and see how we're doing. They've been running for about a minute now. They are just downloading WinP at the moment and starting to get some content. If I go over to one of these virtual machines, you can see I have my task sequence running. I'm using some background information here to show the computer name and some network information. That's just BG info running from a PowerShell script. And then I have now, if I go back to my log file, you can see we start to see more and more traffic showing up. And as more clients being deployed, we will start to see a bit of a round robin in between these distribution points, because this branch office is serviced by the same boundary group that has all 3 distribution points in them. Back to my client. And now the operating system image is starting to download. I can see that I get a few content coming from peers. Not too bad of a speed at the moment. I'm running 10 machines at the same time on a remote location, so I'm pretty happy with that. But it also means that I can go back to my log file now, and I can see how we're doing in terms of traffic. Currently, these 10 machines have generated about 2 gigs total through all 3 distribution points, but also start to see now that we are getting traffic from each of these distribution points. If you, for example, would see that none of them would generate traffic at all, you can probably expect something is wrong with that distribution point, may be missing some packages, etc. But this is a good way to validate that the traffic that you are expecting are actually flowing through that router. So just by having a pfSense router in between in your lab environment, you can do some pretty cool configurations and you can emulate a large distributed environment. That's all for today. As usual, I will share the links below. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Bye for now. Have a good one.